welcome to Mark and Amber's Kitchen. So we thought we would share a little spaghetti sauce recipe from some of our goodies. I'm Amber.
I'm Mark.
And we'll just go through some of the rundown here real quick. So one of the, we dry a lot of our herbs and stuff like that, and what we do is we reuse the containers that we had gotten previously. Really love using old containers of different things. They are from sprout pots to
Parmesan
containers,
cheese.
Parmesan cheese containers. So we have some kielbasa. You can use any meat that you might want, but right now we're using this. We've got some of this, and I'm going with that. We have some of the very last fresh garlic from our garden, an onion, basil, oregano, pepper, sea salt, rosemary, ground sage, parsley, cayenne peppers, which are not from our garden, but we have some cayenne pepper, bay leaves.
I've got some habanero from my garden.
You do?
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Bay leaves.
If you really want to put some heat into it.
Bay leaves from our garden. Some sage, rosemary, and basil. We'll be using olive oil and a gallon container that we froze up because I didn't get canned. And this is miscellaneous tomatoes. There are black crimson, Muscovy, Moscovich. Anyways, there's about 5 different varieties of tomatoes, and I've forgotten all of them exactly in that particular bag that will be going into this recipe. So we're going to go ahead and, and also we had a very abundance of squash, of course, from the season, and we have some more squash that we're going to put in there just for some veggies and a little more bulk in the recipe, and because it's good.
And we can.
And we can. And some olives. You can put, of course, mushrooms and what have you if you want them there. In fact, we'll probably do some mushrooms. So we'll get down to chopping and everything. What will happen is we'll be chopping up the onions and everything that needs to be chopped up. We'll be putting that in the pan, our pot over here, and putting some olive oil and then all of the seasonings and the onions, and that will be braised for until the onions are cooked thoroughly. And then once that's done and all the herbs have had a chance to infuse the oil, we'll be putting the squash and the tomatoes in there, and that will simmer all day long. So let's get to it. I want to say is that it seems like from a lot of people that I've taught how to cook or cooked with and experienced with, a lot of people aren't quite sure what to do with their herbs and spices. And if you're really interested in getting into your herbs and spices and in your meals and stuff like that, I think the best policy is first sniff everything. You get an idea of kind of what the flavor might be kind of like. It's not always the case, but you get some sort of a suggestion and an idea. Go ahead, you know, smell them. Play with the different herbs and things. You know, you can put a little bit in and see if you like this or that. You might be too light, then you can add a little bit more. See if you like that, or a little bit less. There's no set hardcore measurements for a lot of herbs and spices in recipes. You know, it's very much subjective to the person's palate who's eating it. So play with it. Don't be scared to put a little mustard seed or whatever you might want to add to your dish to change the flavors up and do whatever. So I have no I'm not having any, there's no measurements for these spices. This is strictly done on how we like our taste, what we like to flavor in that. So when you add those to yours, you know, do a little bit. Try that a little bit. See if you like that. See if you might not like sage, or you might not like rosemary. And you can take that out of the recipe. Or you might find you really love it, so you add a little bit more so that you have a little bit more of that flavor. Just play with it and experiment. Do not be afraid of flavor.
So, aren't some spices, dare I say, like a base for some foods that go much better with some automatically, such as oregano with spaghetti, or poultry seasoning with chicken?
Well, you know, I would say yes and I would say no, because I think it's very much the education of your taste buds. You know, if you're used to something that has sage in it, you're gonna have it that way. If you are used to, you know, turmeric in your chicken, you're gonna expect that kind of flavor. Or if you're used to a curry kind of flavor, that's what you're used to. But then you go around and you've got like a honey mustard or a wild mustard sauce. That's going to be, you know, you're used to those flavors. But it's nice to change it up, and there's different benefits to the different herbs and spices that you can have. Not just because of your taste, but dietary. Does that answer your question?
Well, I was thinking more for, like you had said, somebody that doesn't know their spices or whatever, a good base for them to start at.
Oh, so like more of a common, well sure, there's a common kind of, I would say, at least common for American households, you know. Some of our viewers could be around the world. But probably a basic kind of seasonings would be, well, oregano, basil, rosemary, salt, pepper, garlic. I think are kind of pretty typical to people that in the American kitchen. I mean, I'm no expert with that, but that's what I would say probably commonly for going over to people's houses and talking to people. That's pretty common. And that's great. But if you want to have different kind of flavors, you know, that might call for sesame seeds or turmeric or ginger. And also the different spices have a different effect on each other. You know, a lot of people, and especially United States, salt. They're actually using salt as a seasoning, and you know, for the taste of salt, rather as using salt in the ingredient for something for its enhancing properties of other herbs and spices.
I have a comment about salt.
What would you like to say about salt?
Americans put salt in everything. I don't mean
Oh,
Like, as you're sitting
everything.
down at the table, butter has salt in it. Canned vegetables have salt in it. Everything's got salt in it. I very rarely add salt to anything because it's already heavily salted. So you may want to consider that too.
Oh yeah,
depending on what you're making.
that's a very good point. One of the things we like to do is just find a random recipe and do it. You know, experiment it. It gives us new flavors. It gives us new ideas. You know, even if you do a recipe that you ended up not liking, perhaps that process or something about it that you do like, and you can incorporate it into a different recipe, which is great. But, and a lot of our meals we're preparing, I mean, it's strictly from what we've grown or processed here from the garden, and there are no salts and everything added. You've got to add them to it. Well, you don't have to, but some things I just like a little more enhanced flavor. You know, the same thing with, you know, using cinnamon and regatta cheese and putting just a little bit of cinnamon in a pasta to help the flavors of that popping out.
So the recipes we find are more like guidelines rather than something we follow hard and fast.
Exactly.
It's funny.
I'm used to producing, you know, large quantities of food for the catering business that I had, and sometimes finding a smaller recipe can be difficult for me. And just for cooking for me and him at this point, you know, having a pot that's that big of, I don't know, whatever we might be, it's too much. So sometimes recipes can also help with portion control.
One of my friend's wives used to rave about my spaghetti sauce, and she always asked me for the recipe. I'd laugh at her. It's different every time. Whatever's in the refrigerator I throw in.
Yeah, many a recipe has been inspired just from fridge foraging.
Yeah, I'd tell her go get some tomatoes and some basic Italian spices. You know, chop up some onions, garlic, and go from there. Add whatever the heck you want.
Okay, let's finish chopping up all this. Okay, so we've got all our spices and everything, and our onions and fresh garlic and mushrooms, and those are infusing the olive oil in the sauce right now. Now, depending on what kind of meat and whatever you put in there, you can go ahead and do that while it's infusing the olive oil. And then we're putting in about a bowl full of squash. This is yellow zucchini squash, into the recipe, and then that full gallon bag of tomatoes, and that will simmer all day. So this has been simmering all day long, and it's ready to go over some pasta.
So this is the fruits of our labor from earlier, and we've been pretty busy today. One of the good things about spaghetti is you can leave it simmer without a whole lot of attention, occasional stirring here and there. So this is it. We put it over some rigatoni. I whipped up some garlic bread, and now it's time to dine. And boy, am I hungry. It's probably hot, piping hot. Delicious.
Time to eat. Thanks for watching. I hope you like, subscribe, follow along in our other episodes, and Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. It's a little bit different. And have an awesome day.